Hey folks, this week Doc and Aaron join me and we talk about open source AI, where we're at in the bubble, how to do personal AI, and what it means for advertising, all sorts of other stuff. It's a lot of fun. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned. This is Floss Weekly, episode 844, recorded Tuesday, August the 26th. Simulated word of mouth. It's time for Floss Weekly. That's the show about free, Libre, and open source software. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and today we've got a roundtable of the experts, well, at least the talking heads. It's me, it's Doc Searles, and it's Aaron Newcomb. Welcome, both of you, to the show.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, thanks, Jonathan.
Hey.
It's nice to be back together.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. It's one of the fun things about moving the show over to Hackaday is being able to bring some of the old folks back in, and we've had Randall back in as a co-host from time to time, and Aaron and Doc. It's fun to get people back together because we all get along well. We like each other. We enjoy talking about stuff. So
It's always been fun.
yes, absolutely. So this sort of idea came when Doc sent me an email where Mark Zuckerberg put out a statement about how the future of AI is open, and Doc says we need to talk about this. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, it just, what they call open is not what the open source initiative would call open, or I think most people in the open source community would call open, because it had a bunch of restrictions on it, which people I know who work at Meta, namely the guy next door, and actually, two people next door, but she quit. She works for somebody else now. Said was only really just to kind of protect them competitively. In a real practical sense, it really was truly open source. But I think as long as there are restrictions, it's not. So it's simple as that.
I'm not sure that's how that works. That was the same idea as the business source license and some of those other source available things, and that it hasn't gone over real well. Yeah, I saw a similar story where Grok, the X.com, the company formerly known as Twitter, they have made the source available on their one generation old AI, right, with Grok. And there's a ZDNet article just picking that apart and saying, look, there are rules about what it means for something to be open source, and no, Grok 2.5 is not open source. It's Stephen Von Nichols, of course, is the one covering this. And I think it is really interesting to see these various companies that are trying to collect the open source juice. They want the juice of open source, but either don't fully understand what that means or don't care what that means. It's kind of an interesting point. It's not terribly new. We've seen people try to do this before, but maybe it's the first time with AI.
Yeah, I mean, I was so shocked, living through this bubble, this AI bubble that we're in. I was shocked that anybody released any open source versions at this point, right? Except for the most, the very small stuff, right? But to have what is it, DeepSeek? I think all of their LLMs that they've put out have been open source. Mm-hmm. They just put out a new one. I think DeepSeek 3 is out now, as of last week, or I don't know if it's publicly available or what, but that's open source in China. Mm-hmm. In fact, a lot of the stuff that China is doing has been surprisingly open source. Mm-hmm. Just the day before ChatGPT 5 launched, they released their open source models, a big one and a small one, mm-hmm. that are both open source that you can run locally if you want to. So yeah, I've been really surprised, especially when these companies aren't even making money. So and there's no imminent time when they're going to start making money, as far as I can tell, because they're all assuming that their corporate customers are going to pay for something. And they're not right now. All they're getting is subscriptions at the most. Mm-hmm. So, and they're paying so much to stand up these new data centers. It was like $500 billion or something like that. It's been invested.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So I've been shocked to see that they're even bothering with open source at this point. I'm glad that they are. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But it's just surprising to me that there are, especially from the big companies, these open source models that are coming out.
Yeah, it seems like they're all racing to become the experts in the market. And I think the idea is that, well, if if OpenAI or X.com or Meta, if they can become the leading expert in the market, well, then the money will follow. And I suppose to some extent that is how that goes. It's also interesting that these different companies have sort of different use cases, use models, maybe we could say, because, Meta, they're not going to make money on the AI itself. They're going to make money on Facebook, and then the AI is just there to make Facebook work. The AI is there to prop Facebook up. If all of your friends leave Facebook, there's still people to talk to in the form of the AI, which is a horrifying dystopian place to be, but that's the reality of it. I'm convinced. X.com, it's sort of in the same boat, but with X, a lot of people are using Grok as like a fact checker, which is interesting to see. And to Elon Musk's credit, X or Grok will call it the way that it sees it. And I've seen, community notes and Grok statements on crazy stuff that Musk has said, which is always entertaining. But that's one of those things. Like each of these companies, they're doing very similar things, and they're all putting gobs and gobs of money into it. But like they all have kind of a different business model, a different use case for it. And so you could talk about Copilot over at GitHub/Microsoft. Same thing. They've got like this very unique use case where they want Copilot to be the leading programming assistant. And that is completely different from what some of the other companies are doing. And it's a great niche for GitHub. But yeah, there is the question of how that turns into making money for some of these folks.
There's another link I think I sent to you that Chris DeBona, who I believe has been on FLOSS at various times in the past. I don't think he was on it when I was there, but I've known him for a very long time. And he was at Google for a long time. I mean, he was an independent guy, and then he was at Google, and now he's at Microsoft. So, is that a harbinger? I don't think he'd go there if there was not something afoot with that. I mean, Microsoft itself is a perfect example of the GandhiCon thing. First they fight, first they mock you, then they fight you.
Okay.
And then you win. There was such a strong about face there, but in some ways not, because the Linux Foundation, which they are a giant supporter of, is really an industry body. It's not necessarily, we could go a big digression on that, but I think they're planning to do something. I was doing some hurried looking here at OpenAI. I think has also done some stuff, or has at least tried to signal some stuff about open source, but I can't find it at the time. Maybe there's something in Fast Company, but kind of hard to read and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
But I think all of them want to say something about it. I mean, obviously, they're pretty much everything in tech and in commerce now, to some degree, rests on a background or a frame of open source development. I think open source is so now much a part of the way things are done in a general way that they at least kind of have to nod in that direction, and they have to also attract people. I mean, and I think in some cases they're going to want to attract the people that are going to want the right licenses on the work. So, but I'm not certain about that. I'm not sure that the people that they're attracting now and the people that we hung out with, 10, 20, 30 years ago are the same type or kind.
Yeah. It is an interesting place for open source to be, kind of in the post-victory phase, you could say. Like, we've talked about this, like open source is one, and so now you have one of these new technologies, and just sort of the assumption, the default state is that it's going to be open source, which is really a weird place to be.
It's sort of like open source is in here somewhere. We know it's there, kind of like, I know the periodic table is involved in nature. It's like, it's there. We have the periodic table. But we're gonna patent this thing over here that's made out of these 5 things in the periodic table, and we're but I was thinking also to the point that I don't know, either one of you made a couple of minutes ago about the amount of money that's being spent now. I remember back when Red Hat was taking off. We're talking about the mid 90s,
Right.
really, way back, really, which took off more or less at the same time that the web and ISPs and all that took off. And there was no capital expense at all. You know, there,
Yeah.
there was, package management, and there was a few other things. That was it, but it took off, but people paid for it. People would pay for Red Hat,
Right.
even though it was available for free and was open source licensed in an orthodox way, but they still paid. And I wonder what let me just, this is a jump, but I think it's an important one. I really do think we're in a bubble. I think we have to be in a bubble because there's no way that the revenues could possibly catch up to the capital expenses and the immense amount of money that's being risked and sure to be lost, in the course of this. And I mean, obviously there are people with pockets so deep that they can afford to lose billions of dollars, where in the past they can only afford to lose millions. And maybe that kind of papers over or compensates or otherwise changes the risk profile of all this stuff. But I do think it's a bubble, and I do think it busts at some point. And what happens when it does? And I don't know, but maybe this goes to something you brought up before we went on the air, Jonathan, which is that right after Zuckerberg publishes this piece talking about open source that really isn't, they have a hiring freeze. Is that right?
So this Wall Street Journal broke the story, and unfortunately, Wall Street Journal uses a paywall. But it's been it's been replicated now in other news agencies. And so there is a pause, a hiring freeze specifically around AI, and of course, Meta has come out and said that the pause was simply some basic organizational planning, creating a solid structure for our new superintelligence efforts after bringing people on board and undertaking yearly budgeting and planning exercises. So of course, Meta is promising that it's not a hiring freeze. It's just a momentary pause for reorganization, which is sort of interesting in and of itself. But I see this, and I have to ask: Is this the beginning of the bubble bursting? Because these things, they're all psychological, right? It's all the way the markets work. It's all mental, right? That very, very little of this is directly tied to anything real. It's all what people believe about it. So people believe that AI is huge. They're willing to invest money in it. And the moment people cease to believe that AI is huge, the money is going to dry up, and then you have the end of the bubble. And so I see something like this. One of the big players, Meta, it's now announced that they are in a hiring freeze. However they want to spin it, they're in a hiring freeze with AI. And so now I just have to wonder, everyone else that was about to write that big check to an AI company, are they going to hesitate now? Are we on the have we peaked the crest, and are we now riding the roller coaster back down?
Well, in the Gartner hype cycle, we're certainly at the peak of inflated expectations, or whatever that first one is, and then there's the trough of delusionment, and there's a plateau of productivity. A weird thing is there actually is a plateau of productivity,
sure.
And there's a different curve. This productivity just goes like this, I guess for those not watching, I'm showing a gradual rise. And I mean, certainly in my own case, I think in the case of almost everybody who was a heavy user of search, they're now heavy users of AI. And AI is now this front end on search. I published something the other day that I called the hotel model of AI, which is that you go to these different hotels, you stay in the hotels, and your freedom is whatever you can do in the hotel. And there's a great concierge in the hotel. The hotel has like a library of everything, just everything. And if you get a concierge, they can help you with everything. But it's still a hotel. It's not the open world. It's not the market outside. It's still a hotel. And I guess it's sort of an interesting fact about it is there is an enormous competition. It's not like it got with search where Google had the whole thing. And part of the competition now is that like I pay for GPT-5. I just paid ChatGPT. It happens to be at 5 now.
Mhm.
It is, for all the knocks on it, it is substantially better than 4 for what I need, which is, by the way, not programming. It's just I need in-depth stuff on a topic, and I get it. I wanted to know what, in millivolts per meter, the signal level of a radio station from New York coming in over the ocean in Hamilton, Bermuda would be. I asked Gemini, and Gemini said, go find these sources. There's no way I could calculate that. And ChatGPT calculated it, gave the ground conductivity of seawater, of Brooklyn and the way, all kinds of stuff. And it was like,
But
and
was
I,
it
I
right?
looked, and I think it was. I absolutely do think it was. I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm guessing before I started. Okay, it's like it's around 0.5 millivolts per meter when it gets there. Because my only technical background is in broadcast engineering, and it's not high, but I can play one, right? You know, and that's about what it should be. And they said that's about what it is. It's a 0.5 to 6, and I thought, and it's just because I remember in the 60s, I'm that old, hearing requests to this top 40 station in New York from Bermuda. And I thought, is my memory right on this? Was there enough signal there for that to happen in the middle of the day? And the answer was, yeah, you have a good radio there, you're getting that station. I thought, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they gave me a great answer, and it improved in this way too. I wanted a drawing, a year ago, I wanted a drawing of AM radio towers so I could show some falling down, because that's what's happening. They're being cleared off. I mean, AM band is basically being clear cut right now.
Right.
And the towers are going down because the land under them is worth more than the signal. So, but I couldn't get any of the LLMs to draw me a proper tower that doesn't have crap on it. And this time it not only drew the towers correctly, it asked me, okay, are these series fed or are they shunt fed? Are they, how big do you want the tuning house? Are the tuning houses surrounded by chain link fence? I thought, wow. And it could also, before, when I had a guide tower, it didn't know what guide wires were, didn't know what the tension had to be. And they were there to hold the thing vertical. This time they're, how far out do you want the guy anchors? Like, 50%, 70%. Jesus, okay, that's pretty freaking good. That's on the one hand. In the meantime, I'm looking, you know what? Google is getting better and better and better on a daily basis with Gemini. Okay. Yeah. Better and better. And it's like, and I have them both open, and I go back and forth between the two, and Claude's not that bad. So with the population relying more and more on these things, even if the bubble crashes, does it go away? I'm not sure it does.
No, it does not go away.
So, I mean, with the .com crash, going back to Linux Journal, we lost, while we were making like $1.5 million per issue in income, I would guess. I'm making that up. What I know is that we lost $1 million in the .com crash. I mean, like all these companies vanished. I mean, there were dozens of companies. There was not even a greasy spot where they used to be. These LLM companies are not going to vanish. They're going to persist in some form. So I don't know. This kind of veers pretty far away from the open source issue.
No, I think it's interesting.
But it's
I've commented before. I think there's probably a lot of parallels between the .com boom and all of the other bubbles we've seen in the tech industry in the last 50 years. I think there are going to be a lot of these small LLM companies that are going to vanish and not leave a greasy spot on the floor, as you say. I have to remember that. I like that. But you've got some of the big ones that are so well capitalized that they can continue, essentially burning money for the next 10 years, and they'll be okay. It is interesting to see, but I think to the question of is AI, is LLMs going, are they going to go away? No, not at all. It has already changed the world in the same way that the .com boom changed the world. I mean, we're talking to each other over the internet, and there are live users on the internet. I mean, just YouTube by itself has changed the world drastically. And that is just one tiny little part of all of the things that were sort of created and invented. I don't know if YouTube directly came out of that, but based on the technologies that were created during the .com boom. I think the same will be said about AI. What's interesting to think about is we may not even know what like in what way AI is going to change the world. It may end up being that AI as a search engine is going to be a flash in the pan. I don't think so, but it's possible. Or AI writing code is going to be a flash in the pan. It may be like the killer use of AI is not even something that's on most people's radars at this point. And that's interesting to think about too. Time will definitely tell.
So I've already switched my the primary way that I get my information now has switched from doing a search in the browser to using an LLM. Mm-hmm. So more often than not, I go to the LLM first. And on those occasions when I don't go to the LLM, I'm still getting Google's AI summary, AI thing at the top anyway. So it's already like 80 to 90% of how I get my information. And businesses are starting to pick up on that as well. Again, we're off the topic a little bit for open source, the part of it, but it's just interesting to think, even like a year ago, 2 years ago, for me doing my marketing work, how big SEO was, right? Mm. You've got to have good SEO. Yeah. You've got to have good SEO. And now it's still important. It hasn't gone away, but now people are thinking, well, how do I get LLMO? How do I get the LLM to recommend my site when someone asks a question so that they're going to click on the source link and buy my product? Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting how fast things have changed. I guess I was thinking about the bubble and where are we? Mm-hmm. It's amazing how fast this one has kind of swept through the industry. It really is. Yeah.
So Mashed Potato has a comment more. Oh, cool. It's a question/comment. How soon before certification sets in with AI? He says it'll be miserable when advertising starts being integrated with the results.
This is such a wet dream for the advertising people because they've believed for a long time that. Actually, Eli Pariser wrote a book called The Filter Bubble way back in 2011, so 14 years ago, in which he said the entire advertising business is predicated on what he calls a bad theory of you. That you're going around the world waiting to buy something, and that the marketers have to just put the right message in front of you at the right time, and you're going to buy their stuff like you want that, right? And the fact is that we are actually not buying anything most of the time. In fact, and when we do get around to buying something, frankly, we're really good at finding the things that we want, without having advertising jump in the way. Mm-hmm. And just Amazon alone, bless or curse its giant absent heart, is really good at this shit. And so are lots of other commercial entities. And you can get what you want pretty easily and pretty fast. And that by itself is a remarkable thing. But anyway, I want to, I don't know, I've said this once, I don't know if I believe it, but advertising corrupts and digital advertising corrupts absolutely. And I think we're sort of in that anyway, no matter what. But I actually want to go to something that Aaron might have a thought about, which is personal AI. I sort of feel right now we are in another 1975. In 1975, mainframes ruled the world. Mm-hmm. And to think of personal computing was to think of personal skyscraper. Why would you want one of those? We have the giants over here. Now, a difference between then and now is that the giants we have now are much better, than the giants we had then. And personal computing is already here. But the independence we had with the early PCs, the stuff that you care about and follow, Aaron, we don't have that with AI yet. It's all the mainframe stuff. It's like we're maximizing what the mainframe can do, and then all the bigs, especially around advertising, think, how can we personalize everything for you? We're going to watch everything you do, and I think that's a flawed idea. I think personalizing AI has a limit, and that limit is it's not us. We need, and this is what open source is about, to bring it back to our topic. Mm-hmm. It's about it's the libertarian songbook, quite frankly. Independence, liberty, freedom, agency, sovereignty, all of that. That is embedded in personal computing in the first place. Is what we've wanted all along. It's what gave us open source. It's what Linus Torvalds is doing. It's all of our heroes were all about, and they were all working on their own, and they made big companies and so forth, but they were about giving us power. And I was thinking, for personally, I'm looking at your background, Aaron. You've got like your wall of little drawers, and I'm thinking, you want your own AI. You can aim at that. It'll know what's in the drawers. You put it together a bunch of other stuff. Maybe it'll say, you know what? You haven't used a SCSI cable in how long? Okay, throw that one away. I mean, there's, if you put in your contacts, your calendars, your travels, all that data that's gathered by our phones, about our travels all the time. Your car is narking on you if it's a late model car. Your TV is watching everything you watch, but it doesn't give you that information. Once we have that, we could do so much more. But nobody's working on this. Zero. That, as far as I know, nobody. But I think the model is there, and the model is what we did with early PCs. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Aaron? I'm just curious.
There's so many different angles to what you were just saying. I don't know which way to go at it first. But I mean, let's start with the first one is that the you'll hear agentic a lot. Mm-hmm. People using agents. So that part is here, and it's going to get better over time. So you will be able to use that your a personalized AI. I mean, even ChatGPT, and now just in the past few weeks, I think both Gemini and
Claude.
No, the other one. I'll think of it in a second. It'll come to me. Many of the popular LLMs now have adopted the memory model, right? And that's going to help.
Right.
I use it already. I've got an interesting prompt I can share.
And what is the memory model? So clear on that.
So they remember early LLMs when they first came out. They didn't remember from session to session what.
Right. They were goldfish.
About, right?
They didn't remember anything.
Yeah. Now, and ChatGPT's had this for a while. They remember your previous chats, and they develop kind of a memory system that says, "Oh, I know Aaron. In fact, it just did this. It'll say, I know Aaron likes vintage computers because he's always asking me questions about vintage computers. And so I might answer a certain question for him and put it in the framework of a vintage computer." And I just asked ChatGPT something while we were talking. I was doing some research on how you can run LLMs on your own gear. Right. Yeah, and that's also kind of what you're talking about, too. And I was like, I kind of understand this, but just in case Doc asked me the question, I'm going to ask ChatGPT. So I did. I asked ChatGPT, and literally it says somewhere in here, you can think of it as a ROM. I can't find it right now because I can't read that well. But in here somewhere, as part of its answer, it said, you can think of this part of an LLM like a ROM that you would put on a vintage computer that always has this instruction set, running at the get-go. And it knew to answer my question in that way because it has this memory. Why do I talk about this? Well, because it gets back to your point of it knows if I say, hey, if we get back to the agent thing and I say, make me a reservation for a restaurant tonight because it's my wife's birthday and I want to take her out, it would probably give you preferences that match up because it knows I like Italian food. He's always asking about making Italian food. So maybe one of the options it gives you is an Italian restaurant. And so my point is you see this happening. I think it really is going to come to what you were talking about ultimately, which is this personalized AI assistant that's not just personalized in a way that it interacts with you, but it's personalized that it knows you so well that the inferences are there. It's like, oh, okay, I understand when he says restaurant, he doesn't mean Michelin star restaurant because he likes diners and he likes, that kind of stuff. So I think that part is coming, but I think the second part of that is also really important for me, which is you're running your own LLMs and your own AI stuff on your own hardware. So that gets back to why open source is important, because you want it to be open source so you can have it be your own thing. But also, as this bubble kind of like as we get to peak bubble here, what we're finding is that the hardware needed to run some of these things, the personal hardware is finally catching up, right? So in your example, the mainframe, like nobody would have a mainframe in their house. But what happened is the cost started coming down, and you could put more memory in a system, and all of a sudden there was personal computers like the TRS-80 and the Commodore PET that had enough RAM in it that you could do some interesting things on your own in your house and use it like that. And I think we're getting there. I mean, I've even been thinking about upgrading my GPU in my machine, which is fine for everything else I do at this point. I don't need a new one for anything else, even gaming. It's totally fine. The one thing I can't do is run the latest open source ChatGPT model, the big one, which is what I want to do, but you need like 64 gigs of VRAM to do it or something, so that's going to be the next reason I buy a new GPU, is to be able to run that. And so it does kind of feel like we're back in those times in the late 70s, early 80s, when we were able to start bringing some of these things home. But we have the added advantage of most of these models now have an open source component. I also looked up, what models companies were using, and it seems like almost not all of them, but a lot of them are using Apache 2.0, and some of them are using MIT, which is another really good thing to see, is that they're using somewhat permissive licenses as opposed to what NVIDIA did. And I haven't looked at their model yet, but they created, of course, their own model, the NVIDIA open model license. So who knows what they're carving off in their own model. But it seems like, at least for now, people are choosing standard models that people are familiar with instead of going the route of what we were talking about earlier. Well, yeah, you can use it, but maybe you can't change anything for 2 years, and because we don't want people stepping on our IP and stuff.
Thinking about what is going to drive people to actually run their own AI instances, because look, why would someone want to do that when you can just use Google hosted Gemini? And part of the answer may be the inevitable insurgence of advertisement inside of AI. And the creep factor with that. So you talked about the idea of AI having memory and knowing that, if you ask for a restaurant, you're thinking somewhere Italian but mid-level budget. I know what Facebook has done and Google has done and every other company has done with targeted advertisement. And imagine when someone figures out, and I'm sure there are companies working on this now, you could do targeted advertisement based on the memory inside of AI. You ask AI for a nice restaurant, and the next thing you know, the next time you go on the internet anywhere, local advertisement in your area, and flow back the other way, like you visited a website and you ask AI, and it's here's this website, or here's a similar website, and people find that creepy.
It's a finger on the scale too, and right. you don't want that. But I also think that what happens. This sort of goes toward SEO, but in a different way. I mean, it's a different kind of optimization. If you're
AIO,
what we used to call an advertiser, okay, or soon we'll used to be calling it advertiser, somebody who paid for placement, kind of like on Google Maps, you're going to see, they'll have the ratings for a bunch of different restaurants, but one of them will be sort of bigger because they paid for it, right? Or well, what if the consciousness on the part of, like, I'm thinking here locally, I'm looking around, not even looking around, out of nowhere, it might say, hey, I know you like comedy. You go to the Comedy Store a lot. There's a place called the Comedy Attic, a great comedy club here in town. It's sort of a landmark, and a tiny town or not a tiny city anyway, it's 80,000 people, but a city with a first-rank comedy club in it, right? And we like comedy. But Fred Armisen is going to be at the Buskirk Chumley Theater in late October. You might want to get tickets now. Well, Busker Chumley may have paid for that. But the system in between kind of knows I do care about comedy. So I'm already kind of, and it may even know I'm not going to be bothered by hearing this. And maybe that's part of it too, and so then the most enterprising former advertisers that are still paying for help are wiser about how the messaging happens, with LLMs in the middle mediating this with some sensitivity to the recipient. And I think that's an idealized way of looking at what might happen, but I think it's one where it may be the only model by which we actually trust what happened. It's sort of like, okay, well, the Busker Chumley Theater is smart enough to be doing it this way, where the competing comedy club across town isn't, and so I'm not hearing from them. Yeah. Right?
There's an interesting change that has happened with advertising over the last, let's say, 100 years, right? So advertising used to be expensive, and so when a company paid out the money for a billboard or to paint the side of a building or whatever, it was kind of a mark. And I remember this growing up before the internet. It was kind of a mark that was a serious company, right? You could trust them because they had enough budget to do advertising. And somewhere along the line, my perspective at least shifted on that, and it's because of how cheap it is to advertise on the internet, particularly Google. I for years now, my perspective has been, don't ever trust the sponsored placement on Google. Like if someone paid for advertisement on Google, that's a sign that they're a bad actor, not that they're a reputable business. And it is, it's really interesting to see that sort of seismic shift. I think that's a big deal in how people view advertisements and companies that do advertisement. And that's very similar to the thought that you were just making, the point you were making about trying to do this in a way that makes sense. I foresee advertisement and AI turning into the same thing. Like if companies are forced to acknowledge that, your AI told you this, a little asterisk somewhere, your AI told you this because it was sponsored, or do so. I could just imagine people are going to go, I don't want to have anything to do with that.
So here's a thought. It just occurred to me. Before there was advertising, it was word of mouth. Advertising for 100 years or so was brand advertising, which is, and Don Marty is really expert on this. I kind of wish he was on the call because he'd go on about it. But this is, there was a couple that actually did a really good paper on this called "The Waste in Advertising is the Part That Works." An ad for BMW might be wasted on you personally, but BMW is a real company, and the fact that they advertise a lot makes them substantial. Like almost all the brands known to the world, other than say Zara and Trader Joe's, were made by advertising. Their advertising made those names. But that was when we had mass media. But mass media is completely fractured now. We have infinite media of all kinds, and everybody's a medium.
Yeah.
But in the course of that, direct marketing overtook it. I mean, what we call advertising now is a form of direct marketing. It's junk mail. Okay, that's what we're getting now. It's junk mail.
Yes.
It's personalized, but it's junk mail. But the next stage, if we go the idealized way that I kind of outlined earlier, is word of mouth again. In other words, the LLM that you trust, that's got a memory and is following you and kind of knows, we call it knows is probably the wrong word, makes a bunch of associations with what you like or what you've paid attention to or what you're kind of involved with, is going to, as a mouth that has a word with you, pass along stuff you might be interested in that they get paid to pass along. But both sides know that you're not going to get stuff you don't ever want to hear. In other words, that waste in the advertising was the part that worked but also annoyed us for 100 years is not even in the picture anymore, and nor is direct marketing. Both of those are gone. Like brand advertising and direct marketing are gone, and some other new form of word of mouth is there. Now, I'm sure the marketers of the world right now that are slathering over AI are thinking in terms of direct marketing and not word of mouth. But word of mouth will be what succeeds in the long run if, in the plateau of productivity, truly useful AI, is what we have.
My fear is that it's going to be simulated word of mouth. It's not going to be
exactly.
the real.
That's just what I was going to bring up.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
You're
It's
already
still,
seeing it, right?
it's still
You're
be
already
fake.
seeing
It'll still be fake. I know.
It'll
It's
be
like,
fake.
Yeah, because it only takes seconds anymore, right, to come up with this. So, I mean, I depend a lot on word of mouth, even though it's given to me by YouTube. I follow a lot of people that are that go around and visit restaurants and try the food, and they say, it's great or it's not or whatever. And then I add that to my list of places I want to visit. So I use word of mouth all the time, but I am afraid just seeing what's coming out of AI right now. Yeah, it's going to be like, oh, that was a really good personalized recommendation for that restaurant, and it's like, no,
And
completely fake.
let's be real. Let's not fool ourselves. There is a thumb on the scale of the YouTube algorithm already.
Yeah.
You see every once in a while. Now, sometimes it's unintentional. Like, I don't think YouTube intended to make Minecraft a $4 billion business or whatever it was that Notch and his cohorts got out of it. But it did, because they're, 10 years ago, however long, I'm getting old, however long ago it was that YouTube said, oh, these Minecraft videos are great. Let's just push it to everybody. And, half of the world got addicted to Minecraft as a result. I don't think Notch paid YouTube to do that. I think that was sort of an accident. But you've seen some times since then that people have gone in, people at Google have gone in and intentionally made changes to the YouTube algorithm. And things will just like seismically shift overnight, the sort of videos that you get recommended. And those are like, they change. In some ways, they can change the fabric of society. Like that, those are big deals, because you're talking about millions and millions, maybe 1 billion people will log on to YouTube over the course of, say, a month and click on one of those recommended videos, right? So this has been a problem before there was AI. It's just AI is another place. It's another algorithm. It's another way for the algorithm to recommend things and for people to sort of think that it's like word of mouth.
Yeah.
So does the problem persist in a whole new way?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's what you're saying reminds me of one of George Burns' best lines, which is, "Honesty is the best policy. If you could fake that, you've got it made."
Oh,
that's great. That's terrible, but that's great.
It's terrible, but it's great.
But I think we've kind of come back to, or we've illustrated why open source is so important in AI, right? Because of all these things. So we're talking about all these things that are going on and things we're worried about, but that's why it's so important, right? Is because you can run your own that hasn't been tainted with all this stuff, hopefully, or build your own, build off of what other people have done using open source, and build something that you can do. You don't have to worry about privacy concerns or advertising and all that kind of stuff. You can do it your own, and kind of there's a way out. You're not forced into that privatized, commercialized aspect of AI. We should also point out that there is work, of course, being done by OSI, right, on this. And we did an episode, I just looked it up, 816 of Floss Weekly, where you can go back and hear about the framework. I don't know what the status is lately, but that was back in January of this year. We had them on, and we had a great discussion about what should the framework be for an open source AI license. And so I think that's, if people are interested in this, and maybe they feel like we're veering too far away from open source discussion here, go back and listen to that one, because it was a good discussion.
Yeah, I think this is all sort of open source adjacent, because we're talking about the dangers of things, the dangers that you get when control is not in the hands of the end users. And that's what open source has always been about. Particularly free software has always been about. It has always been about the freedom of the end user to be able to modify the software and run it in the way that they see fit.
Yeah.
And so I think it's all adjacent to it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. This would be. Has anyone done any? Is Richard Stallman still around? Has anyone done any discussions with him?
Has he been
around,
ill or something? He's been sort of quiet.
I know there was I'm sure he has interesting thoughts on it. There was an effort to sort of deplatform him a while back, and I'm not sure where his star is at since then. I know there was kind of a push to sort of move him out of the Free Software Foundation. I don't think that worked, but there's some tension there. He is he's a controversial figure in some ways.
That's for sure. Always has been.
Yeah. Oh yeah, always has been. I'd talk to him if I could, but
He's a tough interview too, by the way.
He is a tough interview.
It. Yeah, I would absolutely believe it.
I've interviewed him before, and keeping him on topic or asking questions that you think are interesting, and he's like, he'll go right to what he wants to talk about, and it's hard to keep him on track.
Yeah,
I have on cassette tape hours of Richard Stallman on a cruise ship, and in like 2001 or 2, something like that. It was so interesting. I'd be talking and he'll say, I'd be asking a question. He said, "Don't use that word." What word? I won't use that word. I never use that word. What word?
What word did I use?
What did I say? Do I have to rewind the tape and find out? No, you used it like about a minute ago. It's the name of a company. It was like 20 questions. I said, what? Oh, Adobe. I don't use that word. I said, well, it's a brick, okay? It's mud. It's not. It doesn't have to be the company. Yeah, but you're using it as the company. I said, okay. It was, and the whole time, by the way, he had with him, next to him, by far, the best-looking date on the ship. Nothing close. This a girl from MIT or something that he was with at the time, much younger than him, and it was like. All these other geeks are like, RMS, man. Wow, what a score. But I have these tapes. These are valuable.
Oh, yeah.
I have so many conversations with people that I recorded back then on various media, and they're all in boxes in Santa Barbara.
Oh, you got to get those up on.
I've got to get those out, and I've got to
Yeah.
get the permissions right and stuff and get them up because they're.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I rely on that stuff now with the work that I do. With my vintage stuff. I mean, if I want to go over the history of something and talk about how it came about, I love spending hours going through some of those conference talks and things, and it just really sheds an awesome light on what was going on at the time from a historical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah,
that would be great to get those online somehow.
Yeah. There's another topic that does not fit with the AI thing, but that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and that is the tension between what some governments have given on the internet, the right to be forgotten, and the ability to remember history. And I'm actually really concerned about this. I think this is a really big problem. It's not the open source AI question, so I don't think it makes sense to try to dive into that today. But that is something I would like to come back again and talk about. You see things like, so one of the latest thing is there's a court ruling in Germany where it's tension between an advertising agency, and one of the people that make one of the ad blocking extensions. And the advertising agency has this legal theory that says our website is a computer program, and by modifying that computer program to not show any ads, you are violating our copyright. It is a protected computer program.
It's such
interesting,
annoying. I saw that, and
the thing that just happened.
It breaks my brain.
Yes, the thing that just happened is the Supreme Court in Germany kicked it back to the lower courts and said, you did not consider this legal theory enough. You need to look into this further. And so people are
it's so wrong. I mean, already. I mean, the fact that what they're saying in a way is us taking advantage of the reader is part of our thing. Is part of the way this works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's what that is. I mean, especially since because it annoys me to no end, but I'm trying to get over it, that I go to a website, and I'm blocking tracking. I'm not blocking ads, so just blocking tracking, right? And it says, you're blocking ads, and you're not supporting us. Disable your ad blocker. Well, I'm not disabling an ad blocker. I have a tracking blocker. I don't want you tracking. I don't care about the ads. Go ahead and show me ads. But there's no option for that.
Yeah.
And there will never be the option as long as our agency is limited to what I call the Internet of Nothing But Accounts, right? Because that's what we have. We've got a zillion accounts, and anyway, I could go on, but yeah, that's bad. We should watch that. I have another thing that's completely unrelated, but it does go in the retro direction, which is a movie that we mostly saw. I haven't seen the whole thing yet because Joyce got bored by it, but I want to finish seeing it. It's called Grand Theft Hamlet, and it's a movie that is filmed entirely inside the game Grand Theft Auto, and it's where the participants in Grand Theft Auto are trying to stage Hamlet within it by recruiting people who aren't going to shoot them. and there are all these weird characters that show up. It's hard to tell whether are they being real or not. Is it? But it's all filmed inside of Grand Theft Auto.
That's funny.
Wild
with definitely retro graphics.
Wild and zany. That's
great.
Great.
Wild and zany, Grand Theft Hamlet. So it's on Mubi, M-U-B-I, and that'll cost you $14 a month, or maybe $7 for the first time, and then you cancel it after that. But
$7 a month if you're willing to watch ads, right?
I don't remember. An interesting thing with Mubi is that they don't use the same, like Netflix and HBO and all of those use content management platforms, that are like Akamai, that are close to you. These guys don't. It's just downloading from some server somewhere, and so I know we're in that kind of situation because I now have a really great fiber connection here. It's like 2 gigs. It's really fast, and so when things are really slow, I know where that is. It's not here.
All right. Hey, it has been fun diving in and talking about OpenAI and some AI business stuff and the bubble and lots of other stuff. I am going to let each of the guys, if they want to, plug something. We'll let Aaron go first, actually. Is there anything that you want to plug, man? Let folks know about where they can follow you, what you're up to?
Well, of course, YouTube is probably the best place to go. Retro Hack Shack. And my second channel, Retro Hack Shack After Hours. I'll give a little preview of what's coming. Jonathan and I were talking about this before we went live, but I'm working on TRS-80 video text terminal from Radio Shack that they sold. Came out about the same time that the original color computer came out back in 1980. And I'm recreating, with the help of ChatGPT, the host part of that. Because it's just a terminal, you need something to talk to. So I'm recreating the host part to serve up the information, and people will be able to download this software and create their own host for video text, and they'll be able to display it on the video text terminal if they have one. Up till now, there really hasn't been much you can do with them because video text went out the window in America a long time ago. Still used in some situations over in Europe. Different versions of video text are still used and still loved, kind of like we love BBSs. Kind of the same thing over in Europe, but here in America, video text went out the window a long time ago. So trying to recreate it has been a little bit of an adventure, but that'll probably be coming up on the channel in the next few months. So definitely tune in there if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, excellent. There are so many of those very cool retro technologies that, some of them only existed for a little narrow window of time or this very small subset of people, but that are so cool. And I enjoy so much people like yourself, and there's a bunch of other YouTubers and hackers that are doing it, but like to try to go back and explore those and in some cases recreate them, I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah,
it's very neat to see. Doc.
So I don't have a project or anything I'm working on. Well, there's not one specific thing other than what's almost all-consuming for me right now, which is what we're calling My Terms. My Terms is a standard from the IEEE, which I chair the working group of, which will be published early next year. But it's IEEE P7012, and it's called My Terms the same way as 802.11 is called Wi-Fi. And it is ICE9, it is Andromeda strain, it changes everything if it works. And what it is no, you don't agree to the terms on websites, they agree to yours. And when you arrive, you have your terms, they sign, you both get a copy. and it's saved. I've just described the entire standard. It takes 50 pages to say that, but that's what it is. It took 7 years to develop it because we needed to produce 50 pages to say that. How we roll that out, wide open. We have no money, but the idea is cool and the idea is solid. So we want to make that happen. So just look at what I'm writing in various places. Look me up. I'm not hard to find. My blog is doc.searles.com, and I've been writing about it there. Like what I said earlier about the hotel model of AI, that's like 2 posts ago. And that's in response to what somebody wrote, so I'm just trying to stir things up. But I'm very optimistic about it, especially in Europe, where it's pretty widely known and acknowledged by the sites of Europe that the consent model is completely broken and doesn't work, and it's a bad idea, and it's expensive, and everybody hates it, and we need something else. And the GDPR does list contract as a legitimate reason to use personal data, but if the person asserts the contract rather than the other way around, we're home free. And if we do that, we renormalize the way things are done online.
Can we use my terms to just have a blanket? Yes, you can put your dumb first-party cookies on my machine. Stop asking me.
Yeah, the most basic one is called CCB. Exactly. And the thing is, in Europe, they're required to ask you by law. In the U.S., you're not.
It's actually due to California and their brilliance. It is now becoming law in the United States as well.
Yeah, I know.
And in fact, so this is something I learned from some business that I'm doing. There was a legal team, some lawyers, bless their hearts, that were going around suing businesses based in the United States that had California nexus and did not have cookie banners. And this legal team was just, let's go sue them. Yes.
So, I mean, I said years ago that most new tech regulations protect yesterday from last Thursday, and then lasted this for forever. The GDPR, the CCPA, all of them are examples of that.
Oh, they're all.
If we had my terms in the first place, we wouldn't need any of those.
Yeah, they're all pretty terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to work around them, but already
make it an opt-in versus an opt-out.
Yeah. I mean, we have there's one cookie banner I've already seen that somebody wrote for us that said, instead of saying here are cookies, it says we accept my terms. Done. And by the way, the most basic my term called CC BASE, but it's on the Creative Commons model. Same kind of naming convention. Just says services only. Like for the same reason you go to a store that sells shirts, you're going to expect to see shirts. Okay, you're not going to see anything else. You're not going to walk out with a tracking beacon on you. You have faith that your wishes will be respected. But a sort of interesting point below that is that in the natural world, there are all kinds of tacit understandings about how privacy works. It's not controversial. But in the digital world, we have to make them explicit.
Well, what annoys me so much about the cookie banners is that we had that tacit understanding. And then
exactly. That's
government
true.
regulators came along and said, no, that's not enough. The way the internet has always worked. Sorry, we're going to regulate that. Yes.
Exactly. So right.
Yeah. So
great point.
If you guys can, and here's the idea. I'm going to take a minute. We're going to sidetrack on this because this will save the internet. If you guys can set it up to where in my browser I can say, okay, this is what I accept. You can put first-party cookies on my machine. I don't care. Don't show me the banner. Any website that I go to automatically accept this. And never show me another cookie banner on one. Don't show me an I accept banner. Just I opt into this automatically. Don't, and then we can finally have the internet back.
That's my terms. By the way. That's it.
You just go to a website and see
another
what's there.
take. But the thing is that you have global control rather than they have, one site control. This works across everything.
So when you guys get ready to actually publish the V1 of that spec, hit me up. We'll have you, maybe one of your co-conspirators there on the show, and we will dive into exactly what that means and who is picking it up, and we'll see if we can get some traction around it.
But that's a critical point. We had that tacit understanding, and we did not need the regulatory support, and here we are. No. So here we go.
Yep. All right. Well, we better break. It is after the bottom of the hour, and if we go any further, we'll just get ourselves in trouble. So appreciate both of you guys being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Okay.
That is Floss Weekly. That is our show for today. We do have a guest next week. We're talking with the fellow behind Aradia audiobook, which for the book lovers in the audience is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very interesting to look at that. And then coming up after that, we're talking with a couple of guys working with embedded Linux and doing development there, and also really fun thing to dive into. We appreciate everybody that is here. If you want more of me, there's, of course, the security column that goes live on Friday morning, and then there's also the Untitled Linux Show. It's still over at Twit, twit.tv/ULS. You can find it there, and we'd be glad to have you come along for that. Again, we appreciate everyone that's here, those that get us live and on the download, and we'll be back next week on Floss Weekly.